Greg Tamblyn, NCW. No credentials whatsoever. Greg combines a lifetime of interest in consciousness and wellness with an irreverent sense of humor. His songs and stories range from deeply spiritual to irreverently funny, including the shootout at the I'm Okay, You're Okay Corral. And I love this one. And Jesus was a bachelor. Many of Greg's songs have won awards, including a recent Lifetime Achievement Award from the Unity Worldwide Ministries at the Empower Music Awards. This is the Grammys for positive music. Greg performs internationally for a wide variety of groups interested in wellness, and once a year leads a small group of tours on a positive, spiritual, people to fun, exotic destinations. This October, it's going to be Italy and Paris, and I would really love to win the lottery so I could go. Or if you want to make donations so I could go, that would be awesome too. Anyway, there are a few spaces open still. He has written and recorded 7 albums, plus a book of true stories that open the heart and tickle the funny bone. They are all available on his website, gtsongs.com. His ongoing mission in this life is saving the world from whiny victim love songs. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Greg Tamblyn.
Okay. Thank you so much for that beautifully delivered intro. I appreciate it. And thank you, ladies, for getting us started with such a beautiful, sacred feeling this morning. I have really gotten into the flow, in the mood, and really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And everybody who's helping make this happen. So it's been a while. I think the last time we did this was a couple of years ago. I remember it. But before that, I remember coming in person several times, going back as far as about 30 years. Really have wonderful, fond memories of being with you all so many times. So I'm really happy to be back. That's my point. Delighted. So I like to joke about that NCW degree, no credentials whatsoever, and I'm sure some of you also have that degree. But the truth is, I did actually escape from college with a real degree, a BS in geology. That's true. I wanted to be a rock star. Sorry, bad joke. No, I was fascinated by the big mysteries that geology looks at. You know, how did our solar system come to be? How did it form out of these clouds of gas and dust 4.5 billion years ago? And why is it that all the planets and moons are so different from each other? It's just fascinating. These are things we don't understand. We're still trying to figure out. How about evolution? You know, how life somehow began 3.7 billion years ago out of inorganic material. Suddenly we have life, amino acids. We have no clue how this happened, huge mystery. And after 3.5 billion years of evolution, all these possibilities, somehow at this little micro moment in geologic time, we get to be the dominant species. I find all of this really, really fascinating. But it wasn't long after I got out of college that I realized I was even more intrigued by what I think of as bigger mysteries. And so this is what I want to share with you today. What I feel like is the most helpful and healthiest attitude to have when we approach or are confronted by these big cosmic questions, big spiritual mysteries. Like, why is there something instead of nothing? And what about this mystery of existence? That's amazing. The fact that we exist is amazing. What about God? You know, if there is a God, then what is God like? What is consciousness, this amazing ability we have to reflect and project? What is death? What happens to consciousness after death? What is free will? Is that a real thing? What is love? What are women really thinking? Big mysteries. So I thought we could have some fun today with some of those. And if we're going to do that, I think the logical place to start would be with God, because God is kind of the big mystery for spiritual people. If God exists, if we accept the fact of a God, then what is God like? Well, you've noticed that a lot of people, prophets and saints, spiritual teachers, have tried to tell us down through the centuries what their idea of God is. What I find fascinating is that my idea of God has changed over the years. It's way different than what it was 40 years ago. If this is true for you, let me see your hands go up. Because I feel like a lot of us in New Thought, we've really changed our idea of what God is like. And this feels like a great idea for a song to me, so we wrote a song about this. And, you know I'm a science guy right now, you know that. So I like to sneak some science into the songs whenever I can. So in the last verse of this song, we're gonna have some physics. Now I confess, I had trouble with physics in college because when I signed up, I thought it said psychics. So it wasn't what I expected. But seriously, there's a new theory in physics. You've heard this term string theory. So when we get to the verse about strings, you'll know it's physics. So this song is called A Brief History of God, or G-string theory. In the beginning, there was lots of competition. Goddesses and gods of every disposition, from merciful to mean, from laid back to hyper, and little baby gods that flew around in diapers. Animals, pranksters, destroyers, creators, flute players, lute players, nymphs and satyrs. So many gods, it was hard to keep them sorted. God had multiple personality disorder. Well, keeping track of all these gods was no fun, so finally some people said, let's cut it down to one. But the one God was angry, always finding fault. There was banishment and floods and pillars of salt. Well, why? Was God traumatized at an early age by standing too close to the Big Bang? Was it nature or nurture or Satan's little goblins? God had anger, management problems. And God had other issues that messed with serenity, like this long-term question of sexual identity. The feminine divine or the male autonomous? God was so confused. Am I androgynous? And then on top of that, what was challenging the most was trying to figure out what the heck's the Holy Ghost. God needed time off and checked into a clinic. Poor old God was becoming schizophrenic. Well, while in treatment, God sent some folks to teach us, like Krishna and Buddha, Mohammed, Jesus. On some things they agree, on other things they don't. And if you choose the wrong one, some say your soul is toast. Now everybody's praying by all these different rules. Muslims 5 times a day, Buddhists quite a few, Hindus, Jews, and Christians whenever there's a need, and Unitarians would rather plant a tree. Well, God's come a long way from that early dysfunction, and now science has brought us to this beautiful junction The key to the theory is that every single thing is made up entirely of vibrating strings. Well, this is what musicians have known all along. The universe is really one big song. And there you have it, friends. That's the story so far. We're all just musical strings in God's big guitar. Thank you. What happened? I got hoarse all of a sudden. That was weird. Anyway, it's a happy thought, that we're always vibrating. We're constantly in vibration. We never stop. And we're going to come back to that a little bit later. Relationships are a lot about staying in tune, staying in the same vibration with each other. And we'll come back to that in just a second, too. First, I want to say that a lot of priests and prophets and saints and sages have told us that God is love. And we like that answer. We like that definition because what feels better than love? Really, really nothing. It's the best. As an observer, I find it interesting that we use this one word love for this huge range of emotional experiences. You know how they say that Eskimos have something like 50 words for snow, different kinds of snow falling down. But we have this one word love, as I said, for all these experiences. Like, we have divine love, earthly love, motherly love, brotherly love, physical love, mystical love, unrequited love, unconditional love, faded love, jaded love, devotional love, puppy love, love of chocolate chip cookies, big one. But really the biggest one for me so far is romantic love. I just find it a huge mystery how it is that we have so much attraction and connection, magnetism with one person and absolutely nothing with someone else. Could be their identical twin. We don't feel the same thing. I find that amazing. I'm wondering if now I can see the backs of your heads. I can see it. So I'm wondering how many of you have either experienced or believe in love at first sight. Could you raise your hands if you think that's a real thing or you've had that happen? Okay, so that's most of you, I think, or half of us anyway. It's actually happened to me a lot and usually goes like this. A man is riding on a train. He's heading south, it starts to rain. He sings a soft and sad refrain. He thinks he'll never love again. On the other track, a train is heading north through the rain. A woman looks out her window pane. Her life has been a lonely game. There we go. The two trains pass, they're moving fast. Faces flicker past, 4 half-8 beat. Their two eyes meet, and instantly they both can see that they were meant to be. Yes, it happened just like that. It hit them like a thunderclap. Somehow they had seen the answer to their dreams, passing on the other track. So at the next stop he gets off. A love like that must not be lost. He takes the next train heading north. He does not know she's done the same. So they pass again, 4 half-8 beat. Their two eyes meet, but something's changed. It's not the same. Now they can see they were not meant to be. Well, she knew someday it would have to end. She wonders if they'll still be friends. All the plans he made all begin to fade. She disappears around the bend. He will never be the same. Deep in his heart she will remain. He looks out through the falling rain. He thinks he'll never love again. I think he's gonna love again. And again and again and again and again. So maybe you've had a relationship like that, brief. You know, Linda Berry, the cartoonist, the lovely, the very funny writer, she said, romantic love is an exploding cigar we willingly smoke. John Bradshaw, you remember John Bradshaw? He said that falling in love, that experience we've all had of falling in love, is actually, in reality, it's a high-octane endocrine hormone cocktail. And he's right. Science has discovered how to measure this now. When we have the experience of falling in love, the hormonal changes are huge, and we can measure them. And we can see exactly what's going on in the body hormonally. And what they've discovered, it's really fascinating, they've learned that these hormonal changes, these massive hormonal changes, typically last from 6 to 18 months. Then they reset back to wherever they were before, whatever that base level was. So what this means is that a relationship, to last beyond that hormone cocktail phase, really needs to be based on something other than the hormone cocktail. Something deeper, something more profound, maybe even something sacred. So I feel like we should at least do what the Greeks did. Instead of one word for love, we should at least have two. You know, they had agape for the kind of divine brotherly type love, and then eros for the more romantic type love. So that way, if we really love somebody, but we didn't want there to be any confusion about what was going to happen, we could say, I agape you, and then everything would be crystal clear, no confusion. Love is a word I use with music. I love music. I can't imagine my life without music. I love this guitar. And you know what? Before I loved this guitar, I loved a different guitar. Yeah, this is an interesting story. I had this beautiful, big maple guitar. It was bigger than this guitar. It was made out of maple, so it had this really striking blonde finish, quite unusual. And you know, we musicians, we get very attached to our instruments over time. And I'd had this guitar for 10, 15 years and really been all over the world with it. And I was really in love with that guitar. But as much as I loved that guitar, I started having this idea that I wanted a different guitar. I wanted something that finger-picked a little more easily. That finger-picking, that's it. And better electronics, sounded a little different, maybe a little smaller, you know, a lot of things. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted a new guitar. And I just kept thinking about it, and not doing anything for two reasons. One is, I don't like shopping for guitars. I'm very picky. It's hard for me to find one I like. I get frustrated. So that's one reason. The other reason is that most guitar stores are staffed by what we could call young rock musicians. And this is not a knock on young rock musicians, because I used to be one. But tell me if in your mind these two things go together. Young rock musicians, great customer service. Not always. Not always. So I'm wanting this new guitar, but I'm putting it off. I'm not doing anything until fate intervenes in the Honolulu airport in the form of this woman I will affectionately call Attila the gate agent. Now, to this day, I don't know what her problem was, but I'm walking up to the gate counter with my guitar in my soft case over my shoulder, which is how I always traveled with it. It, it fit overhead in the compartment or in the closet, and I'm walking up. I get about 15 feet away from the gate counter, and she looks up and she sees me and she points at me and she says in a loud voice, "That is not going on the plane with you," and walks off. And I thought, well, that's weird. That's never happened before in 10 years. I thought about it. I thought, you know what? She just doesn't understand that I'm a professional musician. She just needs to know that. So I go back up, I give her a big smile, and I say, hey, you know what? I'm a professional musician. I got a concert in San Francisco I got to get to. I fly your airline every week, and I need to. And she interrupts me, and she says, no. I don't think you heard me. That is not going on the plane with you. And she walks off. So now I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be harder than I thought. So I go back up, and I give her a big smile. I said, you know what? I think you're probably worried about the load. How about we just let everyone else get on the plane? I'll get on last, and we'll see if there's room for my guitar. Because I knew there'd be room. It was one of those giant planes. There's always room. And she just was cold as ice. She said, I've already told you twice, that is not going with you. Stop bothering me and decide what you're going to do. Walks off. Well, now I'm worried because the flight is boarding. I can't check this guitar in this little leather case. So I just resort to begging. I just start pleading with her. Please, can we just try? Can we talk to a flight attendant, the captain? Can we just see if there's room before you say no? And she's a stone wall. She just says, you have two choices. You can check it. You can leave it here. It's not going with you. I said, okay, well, here it is. I gave it to her. I said, please ask the baggage guys to be careful because it could get hurt so easily. I got on the plane. It turns out I'm sitting in the bulkhead seat across from the jump seat where the flight attendant is. I'm in the front row of coach. So we start talking, the flight attendant and I end up telling her the whole story about Attila, and to her credit, she's appalled. And when I finish, she just says, you know what, I have to apologize for our airline. This is awful. We're not like this. We try to accommodate musical instruments. We know they're important. We really respect you guys. I don't know how this happened. There's plenty of room on the plane. It should not have happened. So please, I'm so sorry. Don't hold it against us and accept my apology. And she got up to go to work. I felt better, but I thought that was the end of it. Well, it turns out she told all the other flight attendants, because when I'm getting off the plane, it's my turn to exit. All 7 of them, one of those big planes, all 7 of them are lined up there by the exit. And I'm walking by and they say, hey, you're the guy with the guitar. Well, here's your guitar. They brought it up. And sure enough, there it was lying on the floor. And I thought, wow, that was nice of them. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, let's look at it. So we unzip the case and it's shattered. It's just splinters. It's not going to be played again. I felt bad. They felt bad. 3 of them walked me down to baggage service and they said, look, here's what happened to this guy. He got a bad deal. It was wrong. Here's our names, phone numbers, employee numbers. We will vouch for this. We think you need to make it right. And they left because it was midnight and they had to go to work the next day. So here I am alone in the bowels of the San Francisco airport by myself. It's midnight. There's nobody around anywhere except this girl across the counter who looks about 12. And she looks up at me with a sweet face and she says, I can't help you. I'm 18. I only work here. I don't have authority to do anything. Now, you can come back at 9 in the morning. The manager will be here. You can talk to her. But I have to just tell you something. We have a company policy and it's really firm. We never compensate for musical instruments. We just don't do it. But if you want to come back at 9 o'clock, you can talk to the manager. So I left. I went to where I was spending the night. And you know, I'm sure you've experienced how sometimes when you're angry, it's really hard to go to sleep. And my feelings for Attila were not something I could share with you outside of group therapy. So I was frustrated, I was angry, I couldn't sleep. I got up in the morning exhausted from all of that emotion. I'm driving out to the airport and I felt so bad, I just started praying. I just said, hey God, you know what? I'm letting go of this whole thing. I promise you I will let go of this whole thing. And all I ask is that you help me be calm. Please, God, just help me be calm. Something like that. And it worked. By the time I got to the airport, I was calm. And I had let go of the whole thing. Whatever happened was going to be okay. The manager was there. We sat down. I told her the whole story. I had everybody's names, phone numbers, etc. And when I finished, she just kind of shook her head and disappeared. Eventually came back with another woman, a higher manager, and they sat down and they said, look, we have this policy. We don't compensate for musical instruments. I said, I know. And they said, well, we thought about it. We think we need to buy you a new guitar. I said, really? And they said, yeah, just find one you like. We'll pay for it. So I got out of there before they could say anything else. I asked my musician friends, where do I go to get a new guitar in San Francisco? And they said, well, the best place, really the only place, is the Haight-Ashbury Music Center. And I said, great. Now you all are in California, right? Lake Tahoe. You probably know Haight-Ashbury, but I'm from Kansas. And Haight-Ashbury to me was like this little corner of the Twilight Zone where you see the past, the present, the future. It's all there on the sidewalk. You walk around and it's like a smorgasbord for the senses. You see every kind of personal preference. You can smell it. So I'm walking around. I'm getting a little high in the process, looking for this guitar store. I finally find it. It turns out to be the best guitar store I've ever been in. And for 2 days, they bring me guitars. I play them. And finally, they brought this one that I just loved. It felt great. They let me take it out of the store that night and do a concert with it. And that's when I knew this was my new guitar. Well, this guitar is so much better than my old guitar. I haven't missed the old one for 10 seconds. I've never thought about it. This guitar is way better. Everything about it is better. And the thing is, it cost $600 more than my old guitar. Totally paid for by the airline. And the thing is, I owe it all to Attila, the gate agent. You never know who's going to turn out to be an angel in your life. They might not look like it at first, but when these kinds of things happen, and I know they've happened to all of us, these little synchronicities, what it does for me is it fills me with a sense of wonder, because it feels like we all must be interconnected in a way that we don't really understand. This is something that the scientists and the mystics both seem to agree on. I'm just going to get a little bit closer here. If the physicists are right, and everything at its core fundamental level, at the smallest submicroscopic level, is vibrating strings, string theory. If that's true, then at our most fundamental core level, everything is just vibrating strings. We're all vibrating together in a kind of a cosmic symphony with no borders or boundaries at that level. Just all of us in vibration. If the mystics are right, if God is everything, if everything is an expression of God, every single atom is an expression of God, then everything is connected on that God level. I'm not sure we can ever really get our brains around that. But as I said before, it fills me with a sense of awe. It fills me with a sense of wonder, which is how I approach all of these big mysteries. Because this is what the best mystics and the best scientists have in common, is a sense of wonder, a sense of awe at the workings of the universe. And what the best of those have in common is a sense of humor, the ability to take it all lightly. So a sense of wonder and a sense of humor are the two attitudes I feel are the most helpful to bring to these giant cosmic questions, big spiritual mysteries, whenever we're confronted by them or have the opportunity to think about them. Now, and these are two places I need to go every day just to stay sane. I try to go there every day. We all know the benefits of humor. They've been well documented now for decades, how healthy it is to engage in humor. But what's newer is the benefits of the experience of wonder, of awe. There are many new studies about this that are fascinating. You can Google it. If you don't want to Google it, just contact me at gtsongs.com. Go to the website, send me a note, and I will send you a link to all of these great studies, short articles about the benefits of awe and wonder and all the different ways we can experience that in our daily lives. Sense of humor, sense of wonder. Okay, obviously we don't have time for any more big mysteries this morning, but we can get to them later because there's a lot more. I want to take these ideas into meditation, but before we do that, here's a little quote. I think the author of this quote is a theologian named Karl Rahner, German. Regardless, I love the saying. There are two kinds of people in the world. People who need certainty and people who seek understanding. And I would like to suggest to you that it's better to be a seeker of understanding. For this reason, when you're sure you're right, you're stuck with what you already know. Does that make sense? When you're sure you're right, the learning stops. I'm going to have a song about that in a minute to finish up, but first, I would like to take these ideas into meditation. And let's see how much time we have here. Not that much, okay? Maybe I won't even have time for that last song, but let's do a meditation. So, you know how to get quiet and relax your body. So let's all just do that with a big, deep breath or two. Just allow ourselves to sit comfortably, and the chair can support us, and we can give our minds permission to let our thoughts drift away as we relax and listen to these words from a beautiful poem. all things be healthy. Let all things be peaceful. Be sure to count your blessings at least once a day. Forgive those who have hurt you, but forgive yourself for that which you have done and for what you have failed to do. That which is done, there is no need to speak of. That which is past, there is no need to blame. Have self-control, self-knowledge, self-respect, and the courage to dare. Be tranquil. The light of intelligence will shine. And strive to make a spot where you stand beautiful. Then the beauty and harmony will follow you in all your days and in all your ways on this journey we call life. So let's take a nice big breath and come back to the room, come back to wherever you are sitting. And just feel the mystery and wonder of this moment and appreciate it. Let's just appreciate being in this moment together. It's a beautiful, powerful moment. So listen, I think I've used up all my time. I'll save that song for another opportunity, because I know there's a few more things we need to wrap up the service. So I just want to thank you very, very much for the gift of your attention, and hope we get to do.
We are asking for one more. Everybody's pretty much in agreement. We want that one more. Thanks, Greg.
Oh, okay then. Twist my arm. All right. Well, this is a song about a disease I have occasionally. Some of you might also have it. It's called the disease of having to be right. Anybody else ever experienced that? Okay. So I wrote this for myself. This is called My Ride Home from Neptune. My ship had crash landed on Neptune. I was stranded for 25 years. I was standing alone. I was chilled to the bone. Sometimes I cried a few tears. I'd given up all hope of rescue, till one day from out of the sky, a ship came and landed on my lonely planet. And inside it, there was this guy. He opened the door of his spacecraft, and he smiled right at me, and he waved. And I said, hallelujah. And he said, howdy do you? And then he said, friend, are you saved? I said, I thought that's what you're doing. He said, no, friend, I don't mean a ride. I mean saved by the Lord. as I jumped on board, I said, sorry, I'm a new age kind of guy. Well, he gave me a lift back to Kansas. That made Neptune seem like a vacation. 'Cause all the way home, he was saving my soul till I was moved to retaliation. I said, you know, I once felt as you do. And the shock made his eyes open wide. And he asked, well, when was that? And I said, oh, it was a while back. In fact, it was in a past life. And when I died in that life and found heaven, I learned that everybody gets in. There were Buddhist and Muslim and Hindu followers. There were even astrologers. And then we all came back to earth and had to live again. And I said, you're all wrong on the Bible too, 'cause you take it too literally. It's a beautiful story, but it's just allegory. And Jesus was like you and me. Well, that really ticked him off badly. And we argued so loud and so long. For the rest of the trip, we were flapping our lips, proving the other one wrong. Till about 1 week out from old Earth Base, we were both too exhausted to care. There were 3 days of silence, fortunately no violence. And then he said, is there anything we share? Well, I looked at him with new respect then. Said the one thing that I could think of. Said between you and me, maybe we could agree. And what God's all about is love. Well, he sat there a while without speaking. Then he said, yes, Jesus told us that's true. So we just talked about love. He even gave me a hug. And we sang an old spiritual or two. Well, we got back to earth. We were famous, 'cause they'd never seen such a sight. We did all the talk shows, wound up on Jerry Springer. And we were cool, but the audience had a fight. Well, the moral of this story is simple. If you think someone else is all wrong, just imagine you're stranded on some lonely planet, and one day your opposite comes along. Thanks again, everybody. Love you.
And if you can see all of the hands up here, and we're all just like, yay. Thank you so much, Craig. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Now I have to like change gears. Let's see here. Let's do a couple of our announcements, and then we'll do our offering. Just so you know that last night we had the Songwriter Showcase, and it was really well attended. It was so much fun.